Let's bring it back to the AFC East, starting with the New England Patriots, the
Okay.
4-13 New England Patriots, the
The
team that
former
was
Giants of the East.
the what? Excuse me?
The former Giants of the East. They used to
Ah,
dominate the East all of the time, and then some guy named Tom Brady shipped
right.
out of town, and they haven't
You
been
can
the same
tell
since.
the football season's close, so I'm getting sensitive because I thought you were taking a shot at my Giants very unnecessarily, and I immediately reacted like, "Whoa, whoa, what are we talking about?" But
No,
yes, you're right. As soon with Brady, they ran this division. As soon as he
yeah,
left, Josh Allen took over. But yeah, this New England Patriots team that was really one nice Joe Milton game away from having the number one overall pick
yeah.
winning their very late in I think week 17 game there.
Yes, it was.
We're gonna, as we do with every team, I'm gonna go through the losses and additions, and I have the easy job, and Derek's got the much tougher job of telling us what it all means and what this roster looks like. Major takeaways, major concerns for 2025. Talking about some of the losses, those backup quarterbacks are no longer there. Brissett going to Arizona and Milton going to Dallas. Lost some pieces on the offensive and defensive line. Two units that struggled last year. There's some talent there with Wise and Godchow and Andrews obviously retiring. But again, teams 4-13, so guys leaving isn't always the worst thing. Jonathan Jones now in Washington, and Joey Sly and Jawan Bentley are now free agents.
Yep.
With the additions, you bring in the Pastronaut and Josh Dobbs to back up Drake Maye. The big one, Stephon Diggs, a guy we're going to spend plenty of time talking about in this episode. Mac Hollins coming over with his bare feet from Buffalo. Travion Henderson, one of your guys there out of the Buckeye State. Morgan Moses, Will Campbell, Bradbury. This offensive line is revamped and looks different. And then you've got Harold Landry, Minton Williams coming in for the defensive line, and then Spillane and Carlton Davis and Marcus Epps in the back end there. They spent money. I think that they definitely a lot of change, right? They spent a lot of money. So why don't you tell us, is this money well spent? There's hype around this team.
Yep.
Is it worth the talent roster? What do we think?
Yeah, and we didn't even mention Coach Vrabes coming back up to
right
to New England, and I'm guessing there will be a major culture shift back over to the old days. He's a Belichick guy, and we kind of got a little bit of a glimpse of that in an interview or press conference last week. I guess the guy basically just shot some reporter down. It's like, can you just get off your phone and listen to what I'm saying? But anyways, as far as the additions, subtractions, those kind of things, I mean, they had to make moves, and they did, and they spent a shit ton of money. Offensive line has been atrocious over the last few years, and I think that's probably where the money was best well spent. You bring in basically a couple new offensive linemen, veteran guys that should be able to bolster that offensive line unit in Bradbury and Moses. Outside of that, I like what they did with the skill position guys, bringing in Travion Henderson, who to me is very similar to like a Jahmyr Gibbs type of a runner. He's a very explosive guy that can handle 15, 20 carries a game, especially when you have a Ramondre Stevenson that kind of is similar to Montgomery there in Detroit. But you kind of have another Sonic and Knuckles kind of backfield there. Obviously, you bring in Stephon Diggs coming off his ACL tear. We'll see what we can get out of him in the first, quarter of the season or so. But he is already back to camp. He is practicing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, there were three names that I really thought were major splash moves in Harold Landry, Bob Spillane, and Carlton Davis in the secondary. So basically they touched on all three levels of the defense in some way. They also added Milton Williams to that defensive line as well. So their defense should be pretty stout once again. It'll just be interesting to see the development of Drake Maye with his wide receivers and Hunter Henry to see if they can get that offense going.
Yeah, no, I think that you did very well there. With I think the defense is definitely in shape to be improved. On paper, you talked about it, both Landry and Milton Williams on the D line, and Spillane, and then I like the Carlton Davis ad. He's dealt with some injuries, but other than that, he's a
Right.
solid player. Opposite side, Christian Gonzalez there.
Yep.
So it's the offense. The offense, and for me, it's is the O line actually fixed? I mean, you bring
Right.
in a rookie who everyone's saying he should move to guard because he's got short arms, and Will Campbell, and is he going to be worth the pick? I mean, he better be. He's your left tackle right now.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a big question mark. The question mark of, I mean, Morgan Moses really was kind of supposed to be a backup for the Jets last year, and he was forced into playing. And I don't. I mean, at this point in his career, I'm not. It's not someone I really want to be trusting on the edge.
Sure.
So if we got two shaky tackles, that's going to be tough. Bradbury's a nice player at center there. So and I like Cole Strange, and Onwenu is okay. But I just don't know if they're fixed because they were that bad. So
Yeah.
that's my question. And then the other question is, outside of Stephon Diggs, in that pass
Who's stepping
catching
up?
options, who's stepping up? Is it going to be the rookie Kyle Williams? Is Pup Douglas going to be able to do some things? Matt Collins, is interesting-ish, but let's be honest. I mean, his probably best attribute is blocking at this
Yes.
point. I definitely think this is an improved roster, but we'll get to it when we talk about the betting space. I mean, according to Vegas, it better be very improved if
Much improved.
they're gonna
Yes.
hit what the expectations are. Let's talk about some of those injuries you already hit on. The biggest one is Stephon Diggs. We're gonna go into it a little bit. I will say, if you do want a more in-depth, kind of full explanation of everything, we did an entire episode on Stephon Diggs. Breaking down his
Yeah.
injury, what it's gonna look like, what his outlook is gonna be. But essentially, in somewhat of a synopsis, ACL tear, October 27th of last year, typically a 10 to 12 month recovery time. He's got 10 months and 1 week for recovery time. Nice news is it was a clean ACL tear, meaning just his ACL was torn. And
Yep.
Derek's going to tell us about some outlook and what we can expect for this 2025 season.
Yeah. I mean, timeline wise is kind of iffy for me. He is back to run some routes and things in training camp at this point, but we don't have any contact hardly at all in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing he won't sniff the field in any of the preseason games.
Right.
Will he be out there for week one? I wouldn't be surprised by it. I think he suits up for week one. I
Right.
don't expect much the first 3-4 weeks of the season, though.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where, you basically learn how to rewalk, get the strength back in your leg and your knee, and get back into football shape all within 10 months. That's really hard to do. So, it's just one of those things where it's going to take some time for him to start trusting that knee again. And I think that starts to happen somewhere around week 4, week 6, something like that.
Yeah, no, and I think, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Typically, wide receivers, running backs, post year one post ACL tear, you typically look to fade. That's kind of the starting point, right? There is a production dip expected. It can take almost
Yep.
up to 2 years for normal movement to return, right? And you'll
Yep.
hear these guys talk about, when they talk about the mental hiccup of getting back on the field after, hey, last time I was out here playing for real,
Yep.
my knee gave out on me. And then just kind of being able to trust that and mentally fully getting back to it, and the motor patterns that nerves take, because nerves take a long time. But I think he's got a couple things going for him that, the 10 months and 1 week isn't the best, but he avoided the pup, which tells us that he's definitely
Must
on
be feeling pretty good.
schedule, and
Yeah.
he's probably ahead of schedule, honestly. Everyone's going to tell
No
you they're
doubt.
ahead of schedule in the offseason, but like, it's stuff like actually being out there and practicing that actually proves it, and he's actually doing that. So that's a good
Right.
sign. The clean ACL, and I just think by target volume, they're going to need him to be a wide receiver one, so they're
No
going to
doubt.
give him the targets. We'll talk about it when we get to the fantasy space about, at value, what do we think there, but he's definitely got some things going against him from the injury front. But as far as ACLs goes, this is one of the more optimistic cases we're probably going to talk about this year. A couple other guys that are a little banged up that we're just going to kind of brush over a little bit. Matt Collins has been out with an undisclosed injury. Tough to really get into if it's undisclosed. This is at the point in the training camp where they still don't have to disclose everything. Give it a couple weeks and they will have to really kind of be letting us know what's going on, which is one of the beautiful things about the National Football League. And then Mike Onwenu is dealing with a hand injury. Expectations are he's going to be good for week 1. So there's really no major red flags. I mean, Stephon Diggs is clearly the biggest injury there.
No doubt.
Any notes on Hollins or Onwenu? Are we good to move on?
I think we're good.
Let's move on to the betting space, our favorite
Sure.
space. The 4-13 New England Patriots from last year. They come in with a win total of 8.5 wins.
Woo!
Depending on where you get it, FanDuel has it plus 110 to the over, DraftKings has it minus 120, and then under minus 130 on FanDuel and plus 100 on DraftKings. Going through the futures, make playoffs plus 130 to plus 160, miss playoffs anywhere from minus 150 to minus 200. AFC East plus 550 or plus 475 to win the AFC, 28 to 1 to 35 to 1, and then to
Okay.
win the Super Bowl anywhere from 60 to 80 to 1. So, I mean, you could tell even just between the two of the major books, there's a lot of variability and question marks. This is a crazy jump, but
Yeah.
I got to ask, are you taking win total? Are you taking any of the futures?
Yeah, I mean, they have a ton of improvement all over the roster. I just don't see them being a 9-win team. I don't know if they're 5 wins better. So I'm going under 8.5 at plus 100 on DK. And it mostly comes back to, you still have a second year quarterback that only played probably half the season last year.
Right.
And yes, you have a ton of additions, but we have countless stories of teams doing this in the past, and this just not working at all, and the team falling flat on their face once again. So I do think that Vrabel can rally the troops and get to 6 wins, 7 wins. I don't know if they're getting to 9.
Yeah, I
I
perfectly
shouldn't even
agree.
say I don't know. I don't think they're getting to 9.
Yeah, I mean, I rinse and repeat what you said. I'm going to co-sign. I'm on under 8.5 plus 100 on DK. I think it's crazy. I think the roster's better. I don't think they're 5 wins better.
Yeah.
I still have major questions the offensive line. If just because you pick a guy high in the draft doesn't mean it's going to be a slam dunk right away for Will Campbell. I
No doubt.
definitely have question marks for Morgan Moses at this point in his career. They've got some solid players in the interior offensive line, but it's not like they're dominant in any way.
And they've had some health related problems just last year in
Right.
Strange and Onwenu. So
Right, exactly. Onwenu's dealing with some things right now, and then I think the defense might be better. It should be better on
yeah.
paper, right? But I like Diggs. This year we already talked about he's going to be off to a slow start.
Yep.
Defenses don't care about you readjusting and getting back to a slow start. So I have major questions. The guys behind Diggs, right?
Sure.
The wide receiver room, a lot of unproven guys. The running backs, I like the potential Henderson has, but again, it's tough to get things going behind a bad offensive line there. I think Vrabel definitely gives them a bump. I think the free agency gives them a bump, but expecting them to win 5 more games than last year, I think is a bit insane. I think we
Yeah.
can take advantage of a lot of the hype around, this Patriots team in the betting market. And I even like Drake May. I'm a Drake May guy. I thought he was a good prospect, and I kind of like what he did last year. But
Yep.
I just think this is crazy. It's a team I wanted to come in higher on, but the number to me is just too high.
Yep.
So we're both going under 8.5 there. What do you got for player props?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily hedging the under 8.5, but if they end up going 7-10, 8-9, 9-8, it's gonna be on the back of Drake May, and so I do think that he comes around and finds somebody, whether it's Stephon Diggs or Pop Douglas or one of the younger quarterback's best friends in the tight end Hunter Henry. I think
Mm-hmm.
he gets to at least 3,500 passing yards.
Yeah.
So I took Drake May over 3,500 at plus 120. I think between Gibson and Henderson, you got a couple very, you know, good receiving threat backs coming out of the
Right.
backfield. And so, I mean, they have wide receivers there. Just they're all unproven. When it
Yeah.
comes to Kyle Williams and Jalen Polk last year out of Washington, we'll see what we can get out of Pop Douglas. But I think that Drake May does have a little bit of a step, or takes a little bit of a step up this year and gets over 3,500.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't even think that's a hedge. I mean, garbage time exists, right? And
True.
they'll, even if they're down but they'll be competitive. Like again, by taking the under, I don't think we're expecting like this team to bottom out like they did last year.
Yeah.
We're just not expecting them to be sniffing the playoffs after a 4-win season, and one of those
Right.
wins where they weren't even trying to win, right? And I mean, one of those was Joe Milton, so it's not like that was 4 straight up wins. I think it was against the Bills who were playing their backups, right? So like probably preferred if the Patriots won that game to get a worse draft pick. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I like that play. I'm gonna go with Hunter Henry, our old friend there. 5
Yeah.
plus receiving touchdowns at plus 150.
Like one.
He was the leading receiver for this team last season. He had 97 targets and 66 receptions in just 16 games. Now his touchdowns weren't there quite last season. They only had 2, but season before he had 6, and then in 2021 he had 9. Um, Sorry, one of my tabs is playing music there. But so I like Hunter Henry to get back to his touchdown scoring ways. Again, we talked about Drake May. I think year 2 he can take a little bit of a step up.
Yep.
I do think this team's going to be able to score some points, but outside of Diggs, they need another target. I mean,
Agreed.
he almost had 100 targets last year. Like, I think this is every year people sleep on Hunter Henry for the past like 4 or 5 years, and he's still a productive, member of the team. And I think he can
No.
still be a big target in the red zone at 6'5", 250. You need those big targets down there. So,
Yep.
Hunter Henry, 5 plus receiving touchdowns, plus 150 over on DraftKings. These 2025 New England Patriots, a lot of question marks, a lot of hype surrounded this team. However, Derek and I are not fully buying in. We do think this team is going to be better than last year, even a lot better than last year.
Very considerably, yeah.
5 games better is a bit ridiculous. We're both going with the under 8.5 at plus money over on DraftKings. He thinks Drake May is going to step it up in the passing department, being the full-time starter, cracking over 3,500 yards for some plus money. And I'm going to be taking him to be throwing Hunter Henry some touchdowns, at least 5 at plus 150 there. The New England Patriots, very, very interesting team with Mike Vrabel, but is it going to be enough to actually get them into playoff contention?
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.